The theme of the first episode was protesting. It does give us a lot of insight into characters, specifically Emily and Michael. It gives us an idea of what Michael's intentions are. Before the bomb goes off, we see people insisting that the ballistic missile announcement is a mistake, that it's fake news, and some people even insisting that there must be somewhere else safe that they could go. People protesting the reality of a ballistic missile hitting Los Angeles. And then once the missile hits, we see everybody protesting their current circumstances. To reinforce this whole theme of protesting, Coco's father tells her in that opening FaceTime call to be happy. He tells her it's all that matters. Now, there's a lot of truth to this statement. We all spend the majority of our time trying to make ourselves happy. But it's really weird that he said this to her seconds before the end of the world. So if we look at these two things, protesting versus being happy, what we find they have in common is they both depend on whether or not everything is okay. You protest when things are not okay, and you are happy when everything is okay. And what all the characters wanted was for everything to be okay. And these characters each have their own way of going about making sure that everything is okay. As we see the characters go through the episode, as much as they try, most of them cannot find happiness. Hey, I'm G, and this is the G-Spot. Wilhelmina walked around with so much authority throughout the episode, tapping of her cane as she walked. When she first greets Timothy and Emily, her authority, the fact that she's in charge, is just assumed by her presence. She is a very strong, authoritative figure throughout the episode. Now, the way that Wilhelmina looks at things being okay is she pretends that everything is okay. This is displayed best for us when we see her and Meade playing dress up and pretending that they're purples with their purple dresses on. During this conversation, Meade even says to Wilhelmina, I am uncomfortable pretending that the cooperative is not my boss anymore. Now, Wilhelmina we do not see her protest through the majority of the episode, but at the very end, when Michael shows up, we do see her protest. She questions why he is even there. And she also questions whether or not he believes that she's in charge. This is a real exposing moment for Wilhelmina. She's really admitting her own insecurities. Wilhelmina knows that she's not in charge, even though she's been pretending that she is. So Wilhelmina pretends that everything is okay. And this seems to work out quite well for her through the majority of the episode. She does whatever she wants, and we see that her and Meade are kind of quite happy torturing the guests the way they are. But in the end, everything comes crashing down for Wilhelmina. She can no longer pretend she's in charge because someone with more authority is actually standing in front of her and letting her know that she is now as vulnerable as she has treated everybody else. Through Wilhelmina, we can see how fragile pretending everything is okay can be, and that it really does not lead to any certain happiness. Coco demands that everything be okay. And we see that this really isn't a good way to go about things. Coco is constantly protesting everything because her demands aren't being met. So we can quickly ascertain through Coco that demanding that everything be okay is no way to find happiness. Dinah believes that everything is always okay. And this seems like it would be a good way to go about life. She seems fairly calm and happy, but we also see that any time a non-believer expresses a statement, Dinah has to protest this. Whenever they question her beliefs, things are no longer okay for her, and she has to protest the questioning of her beliefs. The most absurd character was Evie. And she's delusional. Everything is always okay to Evie because she's delusional. That's really the best way that I can describe her character. Mr. Gallant assumes everything is going to be okay. And we see that at first this actually works out quite well for him. When Mr. Gallant finds out about the missile strike, he doesn't really have a big reaction. He actually, if you notice, he starts texting and gathering his things. Because as soon as Mr. Gallant hears Coco's father tell her that there's 4 spots on the plane, he assumes that he is going to get on that plane. So we see that Mr. Gallant assuming that everything's going to be okay in this case is actually really helpful to him. It allows him to prepare to get Evie and get to the airport. He doesn't waste any time with reactions or denial. He gets straight to business so that he can get to the airport and not get caught up in the anarchy that he's witnessing throughout the city. But assuming everything is okay will lead to trouble, because Mr. Gallant almost gets himself shot twice. Timothy convinces himself that everything's okay. We see in the start that as long as Timothy gets into UCLA, then everything will be okay. We also see once the bomb goes off and he realizes that he's losing his family, he keeps telling himself, I'm okay, I'm okay. Again, he's trying to convince himself that everything is okay. When stew is first served as stew, Timothy knows better than to eat. He doesn't eat the stew, and he tells Emily not to eat the stew. He realizes that things aren't okay. But right after this, when they're talking in the music room, and Andre's insisting that they ate stew, and Dinah is trying to convince Andre that there's no way they could have eaten stew, we see that Timothy is arguing that there was nothing wrong with the stew. So although deep down he knew there was something wrong with it and he shouldn't eat it, later on we see Timothy trying to convince himself that everything is okay. Convincing yourself that things are okay doesn't really work. And we know this because we see Timothy protest several times throughout the episode. He protests being taken away from his family. He protests to the guards when they have him handcuffed. He says, I have rights, you can't be doing this to me. And then we see him at the end protest the idea that they were served stew as stew. So trying to convince yourself that everything is always okay is not going to lead to happiness. It also leads to protest. Michael stands out from everybody else because Michael never participates in any sort of protesting throughout the entire episode. He's the only character who does no protesting. Now, you may be saying, wait a minute. I did not see Emily doing any protesting. And you'd be correct about that. However, Emily lets us know when she first meets Timothy that she was arrested for protesting. This is our lesson in this episode. The lesson in the episode is you cannot protest things while they are happening. This makes your protest futile, as we see again and again throughout the episode. But Emily understands the power of protesting. She understands how you can make protesting a positive action that leads to results. And the way that you use protesting in a way that can lead to results is you protest things before they happen. So the thing is how did Emily get so smart? How did Emily know that the only way protesting is actually positive is if you do it before the event actually occurs? And we can definitely see where Emily gets her wisdom by looking at what Emily thinks is okay. We see Timothy get put into the cage. This is literally seconds before the end of the world. It's seconds before this missile is going to hit LA. Other missiles have already hit big cities. It's the end of the world. Timothy comes in and he's banging on the door. I gotta get out. And Emily says to him, everything is okay. Wow. It blew me away when she said that. There's only one way a person could say everything is okay seconds before the end of the world. And that is that person knows that everything is always okay. They don't pretend it. They don't believe it. They don't assume it. And they don't try to convince themselves of it. They know that everything is always okay. And that's kind of an extreme statement to say that everything is always okay no matter what. They're able to stress how much they really mean this, that there's literally no exceptions to this, that no matter what is going on, everything is always okay. The way that they stress this is they have Emily deliver this line seconds before the end of the world. Because if everything is okay seconds before the end of the world, then everything is always okay. There's no worse situation than the situation that Emily was in. You can't even say that she was with her family and loved ones, and so, she felt connected and loved, and she was alone in a cage, and everything was okay. This is a really powerful way to view life. and it's true. Doesn't seem true to us all the time, especially when we're going through situations that we don't like, but there is a real truth to it. There's part of us that even says, like, why would you think that when something horrible was happening? When you know that everything is always okay, like Emily does, it makes you a strong person and it makes you a capable person who is present in the moment. Emily is by all means the strongest character that we met in episode 1. We see that Timothy breaks down when the bomb goes off and Emily does not. And we also see when they first arrive at the outpost and there is an execution that occurs before them, they're both definitely affected by it. They're both kind of horrified that they just saw 2 people executed. But Timothy actually collapses and falls to his knees. He doesn't have the strength to stand through it. But Emily stands through it. She does not collapse. When we get into the outpost, we see that Emily does no protesting whatsoever. She's kind of sassy. She does make a remark about not wanting to wear the clothes, but then she wears the clothes with no problem. Her comment there was more about just making fun of the clothes. We also see that Emily immediately sees right through Wilhelmina. And when Wilhelmina tries to explain the class system and how she fits into it, Emily gets the main point of everything right away and says, so you're not purple. So Emily can see things clearly because she's not wrapped up in reaction emotions, thinking that things aren't okay and that she has to react to make them okay. Being able to know that everything is okay leaves Emily in a state where she is able to observe her surroundings and make good decisions. We also see that when the music stops, before it actually changes, Emily's the only one that actually notices that the music stopped. Because again, Emily is a very present person. She's very aware of the reality of things that are going on around her. And she's always in a fairly good position to act in her benefit. Knowing everything is okay leads to happiness. Emily is the only one who may have found a piece of happiness in the apocalypse. Well, except for Michael. Now, Timothy is with Emily, and so Timothy obviously also found some happiness himself, but without Emily, Timothy would have never have gotten there. Emily is the strong one who is carrying Timothy through this experience. Michael is like Emily, and Michael knows that everything is okay. But the difference between Michael and Emily is, as we said, Emily participated in protesting before the bomb landed, but Michael participates in no protesting. So although Emily and Michael both know that everything is always okay, they each have very different ideas as to what they want the world to look like. Now, Michael did no protesting at all. He didn't protest before the bomb, at least they didn't tell us he did. I don't think he did. And he didn't protest in the episode. As a matter of fact, Michael was the complete opposite of a protester. He was so welcoming, he was so positive and happy. When he first meets Wilhelmina, she is scared, but Michael's perfectly happy with what she's done. So if Michael isn't protesting anything, then Michael's happy with the way things are. If Michael's happy with the way things are, then Michael wants these things to be happening. And in all likelihood, Michael is the person who put all of this into action. Everything that is happening is part of Michael's plan. He's very happy with the way things are turning out. The cooperative does struggle through the episode. Although they seem to have everything planned, I don't know if they had no idea the missile was coming then, if they thought it was coming later, but they're short of food, they're losing outposts. Things do not go the way the cooperative planned them to go. They actually go quite badly, but Michael doesn't seem to mind. And he even says, I have good news. And I mean, yes, he has good news. There's another place, it's supposedly unpenetrable, and it has all sorts of supplies. But in this type of circumstance, how do you, even if you had that type of news to deliver, you wouldn't be like, I have good news. You know, you'd be like, there's some hope, or we can't give up just yet. There's still a chance we could survive. Some of us could still make it. But, you know, Michael's on top of the world at this point. And so what we can see through Michael's complete lack of protest is that Michael wants everything that is happening to be happening just the way it is happening. So Michael may be part of the cooperative, but he seems to have different goals than the cooperative, because The cooperative's survival doesn't seem to be a goal of his. He's absolutely fine with their downfalls and failures. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't be afraid to like, share, and subscribe if you did. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great day.